Fantastic ending there at the end. Well done. Anyway, look, hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Andertons TV. And I am joined today by the original Mr. Origin, Simon from Origin Effects.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for driving down in the snow and ice and everything. To talk about this extremely well endowed looking new drive pedal called the RevivalDRIVE. Now, let's do a bit of background because people may not be too familiar with Origin Effects because it's not the biggest catalogue of effects ever. And clearly by your young good looks here, you clearly haven't been doing this for like 100 years. So tell us a little bit about Origin, you know, your background and perhaps where the company's come from.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I used to work for Korg and I designed for Vox, and then I did like some design consultancy work. Did a bit of work with Focusrite, with some studio companies, Trident Audio. And I was working on compressors, so I decided that I would build my own guitar compressor. And I was into like Little Feat and Lowell George, who used the 1176. So I thought, right, I'm going to build an 1176 in a pedal format that people can take on the road with them or whatever, and it's a bit more affordable. So that's what I did, and that was the Cali 76 was born, and the slide rig, which is kind of like two Cali 76s in one pedal.
How long ago was this?
So this was, it must have been 5 or 6 years ago,
Because I think we first came across the Origin compressors maybe 2 years ago.
Right, sure.
And I don't know whether or not, you know, that first 2 or 3 years just took a little bit of time to get into it, but I've never done anything like it. I mean, for a premium priced pedal, I mean, it's you know, the deluxe version of the Cali there's not a lot of change out of £300. And I think in the last, well, since we've been doing it, we must have hit nearly 300 pedals by now. In fact, my glamorous assistant here just passed me the latest in the Cali 76 family, which is our very own Guitar Paradiso version. We liked it so much, we commissioned our own one, which basically is exactly the same inside as the normal 76 Deluxe. Just you get Pete's shirt on the outside.
Yeah, we're really pleased how that came out. I mean, it just looks
it's just
fantastic.
one of those. I mean, I know we're just going to spend like 60 seconds talking about the compressor, because was that just you just happened to be working on it, or what's your? Because compressor, we said this before. It's like it's not the first pedal you think of when you're putting together a pedal board.
I think the problem is, well, certainly it was true at the time. There just weren't many. The compressors on the market just sounded awful. I mean,
don't mix your words or anything, Simon, will you?
But I mean,
awful as in. Do you mean because you're so used to hearing what the studio outboard type of compressors do?
Yeah,
you mean pedal compressors just weren't doing
they just didn't live up to like what people actually heard on records.
Yeah.
You know, because you hear compression on every single record out there. You know, it's used on vocals, it's used on guitars, drums, on everything, just to kind of improve the sound. But you know, certain guitar compressors, they just kind of remove the bottom end, introduce like a layer of hiss.
Yeah. And
they just didn't. They were just sort of made cheaply, mass market, but they didn't really do enough for the sound.
Yeah. Well, look, go check out. I believe by the time this video goes up, we'll have done a recent sort of compressor shootout with Pete and Ariel, where this is put up against 4 or 5 other compressors. Anyway, go watch that because it's very, very cool. But anyway, that's how we found Origin. And your second, I believe it's like your sort of second. It's not your second pedal because there are various versions of the Cali 76, but your first departure from compression is now this, you know, rather monstrously featured drive pedal. So tell us a bit about the RevivalDRIVE.
Okay, so when I play in various kind of bands, nothing too fancy, but I tend to take out like vintage amps or just real kind of amps and crank them up to get the overdrive. Because for my personal tastes, I haven't really found an overdrive that sounds as good as that. So I'm quite happy to buy attenuators and all this stuff, and that's the route that I'd gone down. But I thought, as I'm making pedals, I better make a drive pedal that sounds as good as that, and so spent sort of a fortune on amps. Took them all apart, worked out why they sounded good, and then really painstakingly designed a pedal that recreated all of the important stages within the amp signal path, also including the power stage, and also it simulates like a power station in there to actually produce like a main signal, because all these are important ingredients of an overdrive
Who
sound.
would have been your, like if guys out there are trying to sort of think, who does he mean by that? Can you pick like 2 or 3 guitar players where you just go, yeah, that's a guy who's just got an old amp?
Yeah,
gun.
sure. So, I mean, I think Paul Kossoff from Freeze, like a really good example. Like on the record sounds so honest. Sounds like you stood in the room with him. So that's a great, if you listen to the early Free albums, that kind of guitar tone, it's just like a cranked Marshall. Or I think he had like maybe a Fender Twin in the studio, and he just cranked them up, and you can hear like the power stage of the amp break up and interact with the mains, because like there's a mains ripple on the power supply, and when he hits some of these sort of high notes, you get these ghostly overtones generated. They're called ghost notes, and so I mean that was one of the ingredients that I wanted to get into this pedal. I don't think that there's anything else on the market that
We'll probably come into that, because I think most people are familiar with this idea of, you know, perhaps soft clipping and hard clipping and the different, you know, this idea of maybe different types of overdrive and distortion. I think less people are familiar with what happens when you start talking about power amps distorting and perhaps the sag that kind of puts on. And then even less people they'll have probably heard it, but they won't realize what it is, will understand this idea of cone cry or ghost notes or whatever you want to call it. So I mean, you've tried to emulate all that, have you, within?
Yeah, that's right. So the idea was to take each relevant block of circuitry from any particular amp and recreate the blocks and make them all tweakable within the pedal. And that means that you can, by tweaking the different blocks, you can approximate the sound of like a number of different amps. And you could kind of approximate the sound of an amp that hasn't been invented yet, I guess, if you wanted to. But yeah, so stuff like, I mean, like a lot of Fender amps have like a bright switch next to the input, and that puts a capacitor across the volume control, and that drastically changes the sound of the amp. So we've got a switch that allows you to do the same thing, and that connects the capacitor against this volume control, and that's one way that it makes this sound more like certain Marshall models of the late 60s and certain Fender models. And that's just one example, and we've done that like in a dozen parts of the design. We've identified what's making the amp sound a particular way and built it into the pedal.
This is all analog, right? You're not doing anything using like DSP or anything to sort of emulate a sound. It's all analog. Can we let's just get straight into in the little opening jam, and you're going to hear Pete and Joss play as well here, and we'll cut some different playing in, but we've fundamentally got 2 rigs set up. The one that Simon's plugged into is a pedal that's on the floor, plugged into a power amp going straight into a speaker. So this is, I know it's becoming more popular now to have a power amp either on your board or just a rack mount power amp like this, or something like a Fryette power station, and get all of your basic tone from your pedal board. I'm going into ye oldie favourite Hot Rod Deluxe because I like the sound of it, and because I know that it's useful for you guys to hear a pedal plugged into that, because so many of you have got these amps or have heard them in the past. But what I wanted to do was just go, this is my basic tone. So we're not massively loud in here or anything like that. And then maybe you can sort of explain what the grey side and the orange side is, and perhaps what some of the knobs are, and we can start to sort of, chuck them on, and I'll play a chord as we go along and people can hear. Okay, so essentially what you've got is 2 blocks of, if we just take the main knobs, right? So you've got 2 lots of the same thing. The difference is that this one's modelled after an amplifier with a silicon rectifier, and this one's modelled after essentially the same thing but with a valve rectifier. So we start with some silicon side. What brands would typically do that? Could you use terminology like is one Marshall and one Fendery, for example? Okay, yeah. So I mean, I guess like most Marshalls would be silicon rectifier amps, and then like valve rectifiers, you've got like AC30s, Vox AC30s. You've got some blackface Fender amplifiers, have valve rectifiers
the tweed Fender stuff, I guess, is particularly well known for sagging, like the sagging effects of valve rectifiers. So that's what that is really looking to replicate, is the kind of tweed side of things.
Well, let's just perhaps show people the difference between that sort of left and right side. So this is the one that's a little bit more martially, perhaps.
Okay, yeah, right. All right.
Cool. You can, I mean, big difference in the sort of the brightness and the. I like that. It's very authentic. I know I'm going to get, Dan and Mick on that pedal show will shoot me for using the amp in a box, as every pedal claims to be amp in a box. But an amp in a box pedal is fundamentally a very different sound to like a traditional pedal, isn't it? It's much more open sounding and not necessarily in a good, not necessarily a better or worse thing. I mean, I'm a big fan of drive pedals that are, very sort of smooth and compressed and stuff like that. Whereas this is open and you hear all that sort of zinginess and stuff that you expect to get out of a sort of an amp that's cooking a little bit. But it does sound, massively different, big,
So that's set up to be like a super lead kind of circuit, but if I take away the bright cap off the input and increase the gain, we can thicken it up a bit.
This is all on my bridge pickup, by the way, which is why we're getting a bit of background noise, and it's bright, I like that a lot.
So I've rolled down the presence to kind of make it a bit less bright. You should find that it's very kind of touch sensitive, and you can manipulate the amount of overdrive.
Absolutely, you can. I agree. Confirmed. That's good, man. So what have we got? I mean, we're using the silver side, so we've got the bass end pretty heavily driven, which I like. The sort of presence kind of on 0, we're like 12 o'clock. So talk us through this idea of the ghost note then, is that another word for cone cry, or is that a different thing?
Well, cone cry is a different thing. I mean, they can sound quite similar. I mean, basically, cone cry, the cone is resonating in quite an uncontrolled way. Early like 50s cones, they didn't have any kind of treatment to the edge of the cone, and it means that the cone could kind of flap around essentially. So certain notes make it resonate in a certain way, and it creates extra tones. This is a slightly different thing because this is creating extra tones, but what's happening is the mains frequency, like from the socket or whatever, is coming into the amplifier. It's being rectified, and there is a ripple that's related to the mains frequency. And when you distort the amp, that ripple finds its way into the signal path. So it's a similar kind of thing, but it's a different mechanism recreating it. But if I can dial it in, the pedal has the ability to have none of that, or a lot of it.
Let's hear none. And is it the sort of thing I'm going to hear more playing up past the 12th fret, or not really?
Yeah, like the top 3 strings, sort of.
Yeah, okay.
From the 5th up to the 15th.
Okay, let's do it.
Kind of helps if you play it on the neck pickup more than it.
Yeah. I mean, I can hear, as you say, some sort of fuzzy overtone thing, like there's something else distorting in the chain, or you know, maybe distorting is the wrong word, but driving hard. I mean, I assume we've got it like dialed all the way.
This is all the
in,
way. But if you played like what you're playing up here,
Yeah.
and I will
Fine. Let's just I'll just keep
play
playing.
something. Yeah, and I'll take.
It's quite subtle, but I totally know what you mean. There's that. I mean, it still sounds good without it, but I think it's exactly like you say. You've just lost that certain something that I guess a lot of those early guitar recordings, where you've got these 100-watt amplifiers into 25-watt speakers, and the speaker's about to blow out the front. You've just got that little something. It's a raspy. It's a raspy kind of tone. I like it. I do like it. So that's the main knobs on there. You've got a bucket load of little switches and smaller knobs on the front. You mentioned the bright before.
Okay, so the bright cap just, I mean, it allows frequencies to bypass the volume control. So this, we call it the volume control because it was a volume on a non-master volume amp.
Right.
It was called volume, but
it's actually gain.
You could think of it as gain, yeah. So, like if you play now, I'll put with the gain just under halfway. Then it's like, it make it sound more like a blackface. If I put it on GB, it'll actually allow the mids to bypass it. It'll create a more kind of a taut bass and with a lot of overdrive. So we'll switch that in.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's...
Sounds good, man. It sounds really good. I'm just a bit out of tune, but you keep talking whilst I tune.
So the next thing we have is a Preamp Switch, which allows you to make tonal adjustments to the top end. So in the middle, it would be like a British Plexi amp with the EQs kind of set midway. Then the GB side is like the same amplifier with the bass on 0 and the treble fully cranked, because that's the kind of tone that you'd have to dial in on a non-master volume amp to get it to sound good and the bass not to flab out. And in the US, it's the same thing, but on a Fender Twin. So, I mean, if we put it in the middle, that's the darkest setting.
That sounds great.
And we jump to the brightest setting, so more of a Fendery type thing. Okay.
Sounds good, doesn't it? It does sound good. It does sound really good.
If you don't, we could jump back to this control if you don't mind. So this is, you referred to it earlier as presence. Well, that's half true. It actually does got like a dual function. So in the middle, it's like having the presence on nothing. As you turn it up, it engages the presence.
Hey.
So that's in the centre.
But it hasn't lost the bass end, has it?
No,
it's still
no, no.
fat, but it's just bright in there as well.
And then if we turn it in the opposite direction, then it changes the way this reproduces the output stage of a valve amp. As you turn it the other way, it reduces the negative feedback, which means it opens up the output stage, more gain across all frequencies. So if we turn it...
It's like you say, it hasn't rolled the treble off as such, has it?
It's just boosted everything in that one. It's more like an AC30 where it's...
Oh, sounds good. Can't wait to hear Pete and Josh play this. It sounds great.
And then, so this side is essentially the same thing, but you've got more of a valve kind of sag characteristic. So if we maybe dial something in.
I'll stay with the Strat for a bit.
That.
In fact, I'm probably going to do the whole demo with the Strat here, and then when Pete and Josh play and Simon plays, you'll hear it with the Les Paul just to get the different idea. But I think the Strat's a good bass tone, isn't it, for everything?
So this is super subtle, but if you look at the LEDs, you'll see that they lose their brightness when you dig in on this channel.
This could be one of those demos where I could just lose myself here and just play. It's very, it's different, isn't it? Because when I think when you've got a pedal, sometimes by taking away some of the dynamics, some sort of pedal, it almost means you can get away with maybe not having to focus so much on every note that you're playing, and you can it kind of covers over maybe some of my inadequacies as a guitar player. Whereas this doesn't really do that, but what you find yourself is trying even harder to not have those inadequacies, because you're just literally going every note and every harmonic and everything is like, so you're really going, yeah, let's find all those tones by just playing that note slightly differently to what you were playing before. I guess that's why, when you see the great guitar players who is, I mean, you mentioned Paul Kossoff, and you probably could have pulled like 20 names, but a modern day guy like a Joe Bonamassa, who's kind of known for just like, right, everything on 10, no real pedals, boom, go. And you watch him play, if you've ever seen him live, and all the notes and the subtleties and everything are all coming from the fingers, and just how he's playing and where he's picking the string, and just small adjustments to tone and volume controls. It's very, and again, it's, if you're into that, it's super cool. I want to, so effectively you're saying that all the switches and controls on the left hand side are designed to emulate the
so
right
everything
hand
in
side.
these, so there are two kind of subtle panel lines. That's everything we've talked about so far that is involved with the kind of the sound of the overdrive, and then there's everything else is to do with configuring the pedal to your particular amplifier, because each amplifier has got its own sonic signature, and unless the pedal is designed to work with that particular signature amp or whatever, it's not going to sound any good. You could have the best sounding pedal in the world, stick it in the wrong amp, and it just sounds like a bee in a jam jar kind of thing.
So what have you done to try and, perhaps match it up as nice as possible with this Hot Rod Deluxe? What have you actually done to it?
Okay, so we've got a switch here called the Reamp Eq. Now we've got on the standard version of the pedal, you've got 3 different EQ shapes. This, however, is the custom version, but let's not worry about that too much.
At that point on screen, let's just literally show you. Can I? Oh, yours is on the floor, isn't it? So let's have one on screen now, where you'll see all the knobs on the top are the same, but it's missing some of these knobs on the front panel. So if we just see now something on the screen that shows you one of these pedals with the front panel displayed, you'll see there's another half a dozen or so, 4 switches on the front, and some sort of adjustment control that I think Simon's probably going to talk about now. But so those, when you're looking at the pedals, there's one of these is the standard and one is the custom or something. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So the custom is the one with the extra knobs on the front. Actually on the physical front of the panel, which you can't see at the moment. So sorry.
I'm not going to. So rather, I don't want to go into I don't want to like blow everybody's minds with too much information. But so the Reamp EQ, EQ1 was. I did a lot of measurements on a blackface Fender amplifier, or a number of blackface Fender amplifiers, and so essentially there's a filter in here that guarantees that the pedal will sound good through a blackface
Guarantees the pedal will sound good. You heard it here first. Money back, guaranteed. We'll play it. Switch it off then.
Okay, well, I'm going to switch it into, like, I've been going through the power amp. So if I put it on the power amp setting, it will sound different, dreadful. So.
Whoa, yeah, that's too, lost all the juicy bass end, haven't we? Okay.
Okay.
And what's EQ2 then? Is
So
that just a different-
EQ2 on the standard model, EQ2 would sound good through a Marshall. Mm-hmm. But on this particular one, what happens is it reverts to the controls on the front of the pedal. And I did a lot of sweeps on a dozen sort of popular guitar amplifiers and worked out like a very simple set of controls that would allow you to quickly dial in settings that will allow the pedal to sound good through all those amps as well. So that's what EQ2 does. You know.
Fair enough. And then the rest of the controls, you can assign what this foot switch does, I guess.
I mean, so
This is optional extra, by the way, guys, in case you're worrying or wondering, sorry. And we'll talk about that in a second. And then the controls on the front are essentially EQ.
So on this, it's still in this Reamp Eq panel, you've got like a cut and boost, like high shelf frequency. So we're just, because this isn't a traditional blackface Fender, we have just boosted the highs a little bit. So, smooth it off a bit. And then this one here, certain amplifiers have these treble caps on the volume controls, which is an important part of the way why vintage amps sound a particular way. But if you're plugging into something like a deluxe reverb or whatever, people talk about on forums them not taking pedals particularly well. Certain amps don't take pedals particularly well. So this control is specifically designed for those amplifiers to undo the effect of that bright cap. So it's just a different filter shape, and it probably isn't relevant on this amp, but that's what is there for that reason.
Jumping over the other side then?
So you've got a mid boost, so we can, which is foot
mid-boosts.
switchable. But
Yes.
dial that. So you can either engage it on the foot switch, or you don't need the foot switch to engage it. You can just assign it to either channel.
Oh, clever. So you can have it assigned to just the orange side or just the silver side. And I get it.
Yeah.
That's so if you perhaps wanted to set this up so that one was maybe your solo side and one was your rhythm side, you could do that. I like the idea of being able to have either of these as my rhythm sound and then just engaging. So. I mean, in isolation, it does like go whoa like that, but you can totally imagine to solo in a song. That's exactly the right kind of just extra punch of nuts that you just need just to get that sort of hello, I'm here.
And the frequencies aren't super. There's not like a super wide set of frequencies, but you can't. Everything you dial in with this will sound good. So you've got like more of a cocteau type of thing down the center.
Let's try that then.
Sweep it all the way to the other extent.
Yeah. Oh, that's just a bit too much, that, isn't it? It's taking my head off. And what does this blend overdrive thing, override, sorry, do?
So what you've got here is this blend control allows you to blend in dry signal with the overdrive signal to get a sort of best of both worlds thing. And I guess the idea for the foot switch was that you might have like a rhythm setting that's a bit of dry and a bit of overdrive, kind of subtle blend, and then you might want to kick out of that to something a bit step up.
Yeah. So this is a mix now of drive and clean. Yeah. Pretty subtle, isn't it? But
it's subtle, but
you're when kicking this in, you're removing the dry path completely.
You
right?
are. It's like turning the control from wherever you got it set.
So.
And this dry gain control here allows you to kind of compensate for weaker pickups or stronger pickups, but it also changes how big the step is from like the blend setting. So if we turn that down, will it be a bigger step up?
I get it. Yeah. If I was being critical, I think the problem is just not enough knobs on it for me, or switches.
Yeah, I know what you mean. But
I think
there's also a lot of other knobs on the back of the pedal.
Oh, good. Oh, well, in that case, we've probably saved the day then. That's monstrous. Well, look, I'm conscious of the fact that I don't want this review to be like an hour long, but let's talk about the rig that you're going into.
Okay.
So you've heard everything so far through our trusty Hot Rod Deluxe, using this into the front end of the amplifier, so we're not going into the effects return or anything. It's just like using it as a completely conventional drive pedal. Presumably you could go into the effects return, same way that you're kind of doing your power amp thing.
Yeah.
So, but Simon was saying, one of the things that he's doing now and he really likes the sound of, and I concur in the sense that I see the popularity of these types of products taking off, which is where guitar players are opting to ditch the combo, the traditional guitar amp, and just go with a power amp, whether that be something that's on your board. I know Electro Harmonix makes some unbelievably affordable ones, and then Seymour Duncan do something that's a little bit more expensive, goes on your board, or if you want to go for a rack mount or some sort of top box type thing, you've got the Palmer, you've got the Fryette Power Station, anyway, you have choices, and then you just run that into a normal guitar cab. So we're not venturing anywhere near speaker simulation, FR kind of stuff. This is just a normal cream backloaded 212 here. But this is Simon's guitar now, and he's using the standard version of this, which is on the floor, so you can't see it. But it's essentially the same as this, but without the custom controls on the front. But let's hear how this sounds then.
So I've got it set up pretty much the same as how we've been using this.
Yeah.
But instead of EQ1, I have got it set to power amp.
Yeah.
So you could just turn up to a gig, see what backline they've got, and just set that switch to whatever.
That's a good idea. If we were going into the effects return of an amplifier, would you similarly suggest using this power amp switch rather than, or is it just
in theory? Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on the particular amp, but yeah, a lot of amplifiers, the effects send and return would be directly before the power stage, so that ought to work.
So Simon's tone here is completely solid state. There's no valves in the pedal, there's no valves in the power amp. It's just, so I guess from a reliability and a portability angle, I get the appeal of that. I am personally yet to go to the dark side, and I'm staying valve for the time being. But this sounds, it does sound great into both settings. I mean, you wouldn't, you definitely don't sit there going, oh yes, I can. Well, you heard us jam. I mean, it didn't sound like one of us was in a solid state rig and one of us was in a tube rig. It just sounded good. Well, I kind of think, unless there's anything else terribly deep. I mean, I noticed there's some like little dip switches on the back.
Okay.
Can we go? Just why not? And then we'll get some playing and jamming and stuff, and we can tell people how much they are and all that malarkey.
Okay, right. So I'm gonna just demonstrate one of the dip switches. So one of them's to do with the double tone. So if I just play like a note that creates clear double tone.
That was probably the best demo we've had so far of what double tone is. I don't know why. I didn't hear that as clearly on what I was playing as what you played.
It helps to be on a pickup that's not on a darker sounding pickup, because there's less harmonics to get in the way of the sound.
Got it.
So if I go up from like the 5th fret.
Yeah.
So
definitely hear that.
That's based on the pedal it's got like a UK power station in it producing UK mains frequency.
Yeah.
So the dip switch on the back, I changed that.
What, we've gone US, we're going 110 volt now or something.
We're going to go US, yeah.
The interval between the ghost note and the real note sounds more
Changes.
dissonant on the US one, almost like it's I don't know, it doesn't complement the tone.
That's it. Well, I guess, yeah, and I suppose that's, I mean, you can hear it on
weird.
classic records, and that is,
Can
like,
you?
if you were trying to create a sound of, like, a particular classic record, then it does make a difference where it's been recorded.
That's mad.
I'm not sure I don't know whether you could tell whether they're in Scotland or in England.
Oh,
or
definitely.
whatever,
Surrey would definitely have the best sounding guitar tones. That's mad.
So that's
Cool. So that's what, and you've got a couple of other ones on the back there.
Yeah, so I'll switch that one back off. Right, let's see.
What are you like as a person? Are you like massively OCD about the way you line your baked beans up in your cupboard and everything like that?
It took me quite a long time to lock the door about 5 times before I left this morning. But yeah,
I'm getting a sense that this guy is he's pretty intense about tone and circuitry and stuff like that. It's very cool, very, very cool. But yes, I think one day I'm going to come to the Origin, head office, and I'm just going to be like everything, like all the tea bags are going to be lined up and straight on top of each other and everything like that.
Yeah. So the second dip switch changes this from being a valve rectifier to a second silicon rectifier.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of great sounding
For
silicon
sure.
amps. So you could have this like as a Marshall and this is a Fender Twin, for example, where they're both silicon rectifiers. Then the third one, because you've got like this dry blend, and the dry through a power amp just sounds, awful.
Right.
Because it's not, you need like the valve amp kind of, or the classic guitar EQ shape. So this remaining dip switch just applies like this, the preamp switch, the EQ curve from the preamp switch, it applies it to the dry sound.
Right.
And also when you turn the pedal off in bypass, it will also still route it through the preamp.
Yes. Oh, I see.
So that you could use it if you were flying and you wanted to still have a usable bypass signal, then you can choose between like a British or an American Fender-y type tone.
Is there anything you haven't thought of on this pedal? I mean, was there like a feature you go, if only I could have just squeezed this in? It doesn't sound like there's anything that you haven't.
It was, I think there was a lot of stuff that I didn't know whether it would work or not. So I kind of thought, right, I'm going to build something with everything in it.
Yeah.
Let's see, and I'll just keep what works and chuck out what doesn't work. And then everything just sort of sounded really good. So it's ended up just being quite a complicated but fully featured pedal.
I guess that in itself will probably be the only thing that you could sort of objectively criticize about it, isn't it? It's not a tube screamer where you just basically go, well, I know, I'll just there, turn it on and boom, off we go. It's definitely you need to spend a little bit of time, get this sounding right with your rig, and but I'm impressed. I'm super impressed. I mean, it's got some mean tones. I mean, presumably as well, because it's kind of amp in a box, you could stick another pedal in front of it and emulate that kind of tube screamer vibe. I'll put links in the description below where you can go find out more. They're already, I believe, on the Andertons website for sale. I want one. Is it fair to say that? I think I want one. We need one for the studio. I think it's just got some tones, man. Anyway, I do appreciate you coming in.
Yeah, thanks.
We're now going to get Pete and Joss to grab some different guitars and play some more. And we'll intersperse that in. But thank you so much.
Cool. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
No, do come again. Is this in the little secret black book of future Origin pedals? Are we doing more? Are we excited?
More pedals?
Yeah.
Of
Or
any
amps?
description.
Anything? I don't know. What do you?
I would love to do amps. I mean, I think, I've got like a whole stack full of pedal designs that I'm eager to get going on. In fact, we've just got a new R&D guy starting today, so hoping to kind of step up the R&D process.
Well, you heard it here first. And they're British made, so fly the flag, do a little salute, play the national anthem, all that kind of stuff, which we're into in Andertons at the moment. We are trying to to sort of do our bit to convince you to look at brands like Origin and Hudson and you know, what other guys are we inviting in? Who? Thorpe. Anyway, you're going to see us working with a guy called Thomas Gray, who's a guitar builder. I guess the one thing that Brits have always, you know, amps. We make a lot of cool amps over here as well. But yeah, pedals and guitars we're gonna hone in on, do a bit. But anyway, look, thank you so much for coming in.
Cool.
Thank you guys for watching. Check it out. It's an awesome sounding pedal. I liked it a lot. Goodbye.
So, hello everybody, it's Joss. I just thought I'd take a quick seat before Pete and see if we could grab this Les Paul and get some Bonamassa-y sort of tones out of it. So we were just talking about how Bonamassa is using, you know, like Fender Tweeds just cranked on 10. He has a boost pedal and a wah pedal. I don't have a wah. So we just wanted to voice one side to be a slightly lower driven rhythm tone, which sounds like this. Sounds really, really cool, right? That sounds amazing. And then, so what is that? What have you done there?
Okay, so we've got some presence there, so that would make it sound, I guess that would put it in Marshall territory, or like a Fender Bassman if you were thinking like tweed amps. We haven't got loads of double tone, we've got a subtle amount of sort of ghosting there. Not too much drive. We've got like a Fender kind of bright cap on to give it a bit more highs off the volume. That's about it, really.
Okay, cool. And then obviously because he then essentially he had that whole thing about pedals where he was like, if you use too many pedals, you're not a good guitar player. So now he just uses essentially like a boost pedal in front. So I tried to voice, well, I got Simon to try and voice the other side to be more of a lead-ish sort of tone to go with that rhythm tone, which is essentially...
So we've cranked the input right up. So the amp, if it was an amp, it's fully cranked. We have got a lot of double tone ghosting, so it's like gives it that kind of tweed sound where you're getting a lot of double tones around this part of the neck. The lows are fully cranked, so we're pushing all the overdrive, all the low frequencies are pushing the output stage into overdrive, and we are running with the output stage wide open, so it's distorting across its full frequency, more gain, the output stage breakup, where before we had presence, so which was just boosting the highs. So.
Okay, and that sounds like this. So do I need to press that button?
Yes, you do.
I'm going to press the button. That's exactly, yeah.
Nice one, yeah, very good.
Sweet, so I think that's it for me. That's all I wanted to achieve out of that thing, because I wanted to grab Lee's Les Paul and be like, Bonamassa! So I'm just going to get Pete. Pete's going to grab his telly and he's going to come and get some sultry sexual subtle tones for you.
So we can also slow down the sag characteristic. I don't know whether it's very subtle though, but see if you can. So when you dig in, you'll kind of.
Yeah.
Got your other channel that we set up before?
Yeah. Man, sounds good. And then just there?
Yeah. So I just give that a bit of a lift so it doesn't get quieter.
Sounds like it's Strat all of a sudden, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It does. That's.
Sounds good.
It does sound good, doesn't it?
Hey everybody, thanks for watching the Andertons Guitar YouTube channel. If you're a drummer or a keyboard player or interested in music technology, you might find one of our other channels interesting, and I'll put details of those in the description below. If you want to find out more about the products we've just featured, please click here. If you'd like to buy a t-shirt like this, please click here. If you want to watch another video on our guitar channel, click down here. And to subscribe to our guitar channel, click here. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.